food security, or food sovereignty. Every time we buy food, we choose. Glyphosate exposure is exploding, and people are asking, why is food so expensive? This is why we do what we do. Organic fields, thriving orchards, the purest ingredients straight from the earth. From our farms to your family, we do the testing so you don't have to. You save time, you save money, and our regenerative farms continue to grow. It's time to remove what does not belong. Rebuild with cleaner inputs. Support the farmers with the future in mind. This isn't a trend, it's a shift. We still have a voice. We still have a choice to vote with our dollars for a healthier America today. Tap the link.
Are you ready to take your health back? At vandersteelhealth.com, I trust Purium's powerful superfoods to fuel my body with clean, plant-based nutrition. And in a world filled with toxins, Biomedic is designed to help support your body's natural detox process, even from glyphosate exposure. Real nutrition, targeted support, no junk. Go to vandersteelhealth.com and take control of your health today.
I know you're struggling with the cost of things, and many have contemplated leaving our state because it's become unaffordable. On day one as governor, my number one priority, eliminate homestead property taxes, reduce insurance rates by up to 20%, and reduce electric rates. I'm the only candidate with a plan. We will make sure that Florida is a place where you can work hard, raise a family, and retire and afford to live in our great state.
And good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. We have New Orleans in the house. Thanks, Rhonda, for being here. I'm Ann Vandersteel, and this is Steel News. Just want to bring us back to some of the darkest days that we faced as a nation most recently, which were the days of COVID, the COVID pandemic. You guys remember how Congress just moved with unprecedented speed, basically, to prevent the collapse of our American economy. Do you remember all that? They were doing all this stuff. Yeah, well, businesses were being forced into closure overnight. Millions of Americans faced losing their jobs and did. But the solution that came around that was presented miraculously almost immediately became the Paycheck Protection Program. Congress authorized approximately $814 billion, and lenders ultimately issued approximately 11.8 million loans, totaling roughly $800 billion before the program closed in May of 2021. But here is the important part many Americans still don't understand. PPP, as it was known, was never intended to be a conventional loan program. It was deliberately designed as a forgivable payroll subsidy. If borrowers met the requirements, generally using at least 60% for payroll and the remainder for approved business expenses like rent, mortgage, interest, utilities, stuff like that, stuff that the government basically intended for those loans to be forgiven. But by May of 2024, the SBA had forgiven more than 10.5 million loans, totaling over $750 billion. So it seemed like it was moving in the right direction, considering this was just a free-for-all, apparently. I don't know. But that means that the overwhelming majority of those PPP recipients actually never repaid the money because they weren't expected to. Remember, that was the design of the program, forgivable loans. Why do you even call it forgivable loans? Just say I'm giving it away. But anyway, this is the government, so who knows? This is also why one of the statistics that's often repeated online, that only 73,000 loans were repaid. can sometimes be misleading because the difference between loans issued and loans forgiven includes canceled loans, loans still outstanding, partial forgiveness, defaults, denied forgiveness applications, and repayments. You can't just simply call them repaid because the PPP program itself wasn't an accident. It was created through the bipartisan CARES Act signed into law by President Trump in March of 2020. The Senate Small Business Task Force was led by Republicans Marco Rubio and Susan Collins, along with Democrats Ben Cardin and Jeanne Shaheen. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin and SBA Administrator Jovita Carranza implemented the program, which was launched in just a week. I mean, think about that. The government actually moved this quickly. It's amazing. It's as if they were prepared for this. Anyhow, that speed always comes with consequences. Imagine that. The SBA Inspector General later described it as a pay and chase environment. Get money into the economy immediately and investigate potential fraud later. Wait a minute. These are supposed to be forgivable loans. What are we looking for fraud and chasing if you're just giving the money away and you're making these decisions snappily in a week and Congress is all on board? It's amazing. Show me the man, I'll show you the crime. This has this unbelievable stench to it. Anyway, government watchdogs have since identified millions of loans containing one or more fraud indicators, and the SBA has acknowledged billions of dollars in forgiven loans that were later flagged as potentially ineligible, which brings us to the question that deserves far more attention that's received. If more than 10 million loans were forgiven, if government auditors identified millions of loans with fraud indicators, if billions of dollars remain under scrutiny, why were some borrowers criminally prosecuted while millions of other borrowers, including wealthy owners, profitable companies, and businesses backed by major investors, received full forgiveness or simply resolved questions through civil settlements? That's not a defense of fraud. That smells and really is more a question about equal justice, because justice can't depend upon who you know, how much money you have, or whether prosecutors decide you're the example they want to make. Today's guest is Chris Mazie. He has become one of the public faces of this debate. Whether you agree with him or disagree with him, his case actually raises much larger questions about prosecutorial discretion, government accountability, and whether Americans are truly treated equally under the law. So let's begin here. Our introduction on Chris. Chris is a serial entrepreneur. He's a filmmaker, an author, husband, and father of 2 sons. And before becoming nationally known because of his federal prosecution, Chris spent decades building businesses in hospitality, catering, and media production. Following his conviction in a PPP-related case, Chris has become an outspoken advocate for prosecutorial accountability and criminal justice reform. His family launched PardonMazie.com while they have been arguing that his prosecution, and his wife, by the way, who served time as well for the same sentence, reflects broader concerns about selective enforcement and prosecutorial misconduct. Chris is preparing for the next chapter of his legal journey, and he's joining us today to talk about the case, the PPP program, the pardon process, and what he believes needs to change in America's justice system. Chris, it's great to have you here. Thanks for being here, and welcome back to Steel News. It's good to see you. I know you just are sort of reeling from a move, and they're a little tired. You said off camera, running on caffeine and what?
Advil.
Bill, I'm so sorry. That's just
a little sore. Yeah, it's
we've all been there. We've all been there.
We'll leave it there. But
yeah, well, you've been doing the circuit. I've seen your shows you've done with Roger and several other big name podcasters out there, keeping the story alive, which is what we need to do if we want to get the attention of anybody in the administration and the Justice Department to see the absurdity on its face with what I just rattled off in my opening remarks. It is justice, rules for thee and not for me sort of a thing, or just us justice and the hell with the rest of you. So how have you been holding up since we last spoke?
I mean, it's a roller coaster. Anybody that's going through something like this knows sometimes you feel like you're just on the downward slope.
Mm-hmm.
And then you might have a little bit of a up. And I mean, since we talked last, been back to DC again, and Erin actually was able to come with me that time because she had literally just gotten off of her home confinement date, and the judge actually approved it on an emergency motion to let her leave. So that was nice. But now, there are days in the summer, and I've said this before, where everything feels normal because we're all 4 of us are back together.
Sure.
But then I use this analogy. It's like you're looking at the weather report, and you still have the storm coming in that kind of is lingering, and it's, it's coming faster and faster now. So,
How are your sons handling this? I mean, this is stressful. I talked to somebody last night who's, got the SEC, the state, SDNY. They're looking at, they've been convicted. They're looking at reporting to prison on September 10th, and they have pardons in as well. The case was the show me the man, I'll show you the crime type thing. The SEC literally fabricated stuff. It was unbelievable. And the entire prosecution has been an abomination. They've on appeal, trying to get bond out on appeal. But so they don't have to report on the 10th while they go through the appeal process. But they're pretty getting to the point of disillusion at this point, because we would have thought at this point, with everything happening, that where time is running out with this administration, and the absurdity of your case and theirs and many others I'm looking at is literally screaming headlines like this is totally justice rules for thee and not for me sort of a thing. And it seems like the DOJ is still hell-bent on getting notches on their bedpost.
Yeah, I mean, it's just idiotic if you think about it, and very intentional. And yeah, obviously, I know the case you're talking about in New York is a really odd court to deal with, both the Eastern and the Southern District.
Yeah.
And I can feel for the other people you're helping there, because I mean, you have that deadline coming up on your calendar, but you're also fighting, and you want to stay home for your family as long as possible. And that's what, I mean, we're trying to do as well, just for our kids' sake. Sorry, we're moving, so cats are everywhere.
That's okay. I love cats. I've got one in here right now.
Everyone will be distracted by that one now. But yeah, I mean, I know someone else that was going through, who's doing an appeal, and I mean, unfortunately, the judge just was mean, and he's now at Lompoc, and it's a pretty winnable appeal. So
yeah, it's a low security prison, Lompoc, which is more of a work camp. It's more of a work camp. I know people that have been in there. I mean, this is sad. I get phone calls once a week from some federal prison lockup somewhere. This is my friend circle now. What does that say?
Yeah,
it's terrible.
Yeah, it's an interesting circle and world to be in, to say the least. And I was kind of halfway joking when I was on Rob Maness's show the other day, because we were talking about, I feel like the original lawfare victim was former Governor Rod Blagojevich. And at that time, it was 2008. Like, if you're not going through this, for like people watching your show, I was the same way before we got targeted. I'm like, well, I mean, the government had to do their due diligence. Those people must have done something. And I thought the same thing with Rod. And my wife went to Cal Poly here in San Luis Obispo, and their motto is learn by doing. And unfortunately, we're thrown into that world of the learn by doing. And I mean, you're obviously not going through something like this, but you're using your voice, so you're kind of learning by doing, by advocating. Well, and it's very admirable.
Listen, I advocate for those that have been unjustly treated. I was thrown into the domestic terrorist, Quiet Skies program. I was the first person I was patient 0 after J6. So for 2 years I went through, and I was traveling 4 days a week, every week I was on a plane. So 4 to 6 flights a week, sometimes 8. And every single flight, didn't matter if it was changing airports, whatever, they had 10 to 12 TSA agents. I had, I failed bomb tests all the time because I, quote, failed them. I missed planes, was moved from planes. I was harassed. It was humiliating. I did that for 2 years. And I made some changes so that I could end that. But, they did that to me because they wanted me to experience something, but they also didn't want me to give up my platform, because at the end of the day, by putting these stories out, we have one aspect is we're trying to get the attention of the right people and hopefully motivate them to stand up. Because from where I'm sitting, and I'm going to speak plain, these are my words, not yours, Chris. So I don't even expect you to comment on this. But, President Trump, told us he took the slings and arrows so we didn't have to. Well, we're still taking the slings and arrows. And when you decide to become a public servant and step into that arena, and your family is able to capitalize on that, and I'm not even going to speak to the billions of dollars that Trumps have made. That's fine. I know they lost money the first term. Don't care. But when you see that the same system that attacked your company, DJT, True Social, is attacking good people, and you understand the SEC is involved, you see the agencies involved, then you got to step in. And when, the PPP program was stood up and they were forgivable loans, and now all of a sudden they're deciding to prosecute certain people, and not others, and it's sort of a game of favorites. I'm sorry, that's when you have to draw the line and say, this is where the president, and he needs to, tell his DOJ, we need to cut the crap and we need to protect our people, because the government is attacking the people. And that's the whole point of the Constitution, is to protect you and me from an overarching tyrannical government that, makes rules up as they go, rules for thee and not for me. And so, I'm going to call President Trump out, because I think he should be standing up. I think he should be signing these pardons, and he shouldn't worry about what the downstream effect is. His job is to protect us and to follow the Constitution. And so that's where I am on that. But again, I don't want to put those words in your mouth. I just want him to, hear this, and hopefully it will resonate, because, we all stood with him when he was being attacked. And a lot of people went to jail when he was being attacked and the elections are being stolen. So I think it's a mutual, we got to take care of each other, because the government's out of control. So
no, I get it. And I actually, one time when I was in DC, I was talking to Bill Marshall, the director of the BOP. I was at the Capitol for an event that I was invited to, and Todd Chrisley was there, and I had been talking to Todd before then, so he introduced me. And I mean, I had my two boys with me. This was before Aaron was out, and we had a pretty candid conversation to kind of have similarities to what you were just saying, just how the government, he's trying to fix stuff within the BOP, and I get it.
right.
And I gave him the analogy, and he said he really liked it. But the BOP, like other, I feel, agencies, have not been, let's just say it's a machine, and it has not been lubricated in decades. And even worse, they've been using crazy glue instead of lubrication. And I know, I mean, just to add on top of bureaucracy, I know stuff takes a while. So Martha Burns told me, like, you have to prepare when you going in, like you're going to war. So it sucks to be having to go in, but think of it that way. You're going in for war,
right?
To fight this justice system that happened under the Otto Penn presidency. So I mean,
yeah.
I kind of take that. I also see the way you're talking and the way you feel about this stuff's not getting done.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to be in some kind of a middle road, even though, I would love to get a pardon on Thursday, but
yeah.
It's one of those things, like, now I'm just mentally preparing for that. And then when you get back to the PPP stuff, I mean, it was just kind of crazy. Like, you gave the statistical numbers, and a lot of those businesses, even in my industry for the entertainment world, but I mean, think of some of those other industries that just boomed during COVID, like the mortgage industry, the used car industry was huge. Most of those places did take loans, and then it was almost just like they did it by the book, with their payroll, but then they kind of violated the False Claims Act.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there was selective prosecution on those, and that's just a civil suit,
right?
But still, there was selective prosecution, and all those companies that I had mentioned, like Barbara Streisand's company and Coppola's and Jim Henson's and some of those other ones. I don't ever remember seeing them getting a letter from the DOJ.
Let's take a listen to what you said about Barbara Streisand, because I think this was pretty telling.
Was dug up, and the problem.
Whoops, hang on.
One she gave me was Barwood Films, which was Barbara Streisand's production company, and the majority of that money went to pay her gardeners, her, house staff, maids. It didn't go at all to producing from what was dug up. And the problem is all these companies that got that, like you said earlier, is free money for their payroll.
Right.
So they were all had huge profits during COVID because, you know, they didn't have to put out their, you know, top line money to pay for payroll. So they all took huge bonuses at the end of the year. And they all got forgiven because let's see the stat on the forgiven I guess there was around 11.5 million loans and only 73,000 were actually paid back.
So to me, this is just yet, you know, another example of rules for thee and not for me. I mean, the Holly weirdos, for whatever reason, most of the time get a pass. You are part of the Hollywood crew. What do you think the difference is? Why did you get singled out?
I mean, you could go down a couple different rabbit holes on this one. I mean, when I registered to vote, I've always been a Republican since I was 18. You know, I'm kind of cast into that world of conservative in Hollywood. So you got the Dean Cains, the old Todd Chrisleys, but like you know, there's a handful, Kevin Sorbo, like those kind of guys that Hollywood tries to find a way to push you out. Or you could go down the other rabbit hole, which my father-in-law is the one that kind of put that bug in my head, is we were getting ready to do a project about organized crime and government corruption in Hawaii in the 1990s. Even though it was a fictional lead character, I don't know if I said this on your last episode I was on, but even though it was the lead character was fictional, we developed that story, and it was Aaron and I basically about everything around this fictional character was true events. And if you do a deep dive about Hawaii, I mean, going back all the way into the 40s and 50s, like, I mean, it was like Las Vegas in there. So our period piece took place in the 1990s. And you know, I've met Nick Shirley a couple times, and I'm like, hey, when you're done in California, you should take a flight over to Hawaii for a few months, because there's probably a lot of stuff you can uncover, but hopefully they don't come after you.
Yeah, that's unfortunately the truth. So let me get an update. Where does your case stand today? Has the court established your surrender date, and what are you looking at between now and then?
So yeah, since Erin was technically done with her sentence, you know, now she's on pre-trial supervised release for the next 3 years, which is odd. But paying restitution on money that we've already paid back, which is another red flag. But I had my status hearing on July 11th, and I finally have a qualified lawyer, and Roger even backed that up. I have Bill Shipley, because we went through the ringer with I mean, I wish I would have found Bill 5 years ago now, but it is what it is. But so the judge was somewhat nicer to me than Aaron, because he only gave Aaron 2 weeks to self-surrender to the Marshal Services.
Right.
He put her through a month of hell in like a county jail. And I think, and this is just me speculating and maybe hoping, in the 2255 appeal that we did, I threw everything at the judge on the misconduct, backed up with documentation. It's not just me saying something. Everything was documented on the misconduct and the lies that the prosecutor. So the judge saw that. So he at least was nice, and he gave me 6 weeks. So we're looking at an August 20th date to report directly to the camp. Bill Shipley just filed a motion yesterday to try and extend that, because there's issues going on with my parents. My stepdad, he's basically final stages of his Parkinson's. It's not good. Like I might go in and he might not be here when I come out, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he just spent a week in the hospital because of it. So it's more crucial now to get 24-hour care. And I was the 24-hour care for them.
Right.
We only live about 5 minutes from their house.
Right.
So we're hoping to extend it just so I can get them prepared, because my mom also, she's rheumatoid arthritis. They're both in their late 70s, and actually Reese is in he's 85 now. So I mean, they're up there and they need help. And unfortunately, it's unfortunately, but it's going to help financially for them. My aunt did pass away, who's from New Orleans. And so my mom needs to sell her house, and that will help getting them either in a facility or having 24-hour care come to their house while I'm gone. So we're hoping the judge compassion that I saw on the last call I had with him will help me at least stay out a little bit longer to help them there. So, I mean, that's what we're kind of fighting for right now, while obviously still pursuing a pardon, because obviously that would take this whole mess off our table, and then we can actually start living our lives again. And like I said before, those days that felt normal, like when we took the kids right after they got out of school to Disneyland, we went down to Huntington Beach for a few days, and it felt like it was before COVID, when we were doing really well. We were taking vacations a lot when we could, because we could afford it. So we're hoping something. And to kind of get back, and I've done this analogy, and I don't want it to sound mean, but I'm like, I really wish, or I'm very glad that firefighters and police officers and even lifeguards don't have the same mentality as some of the people at the White House, where they have to argue before saving someone, or like, we can't get these people out of this burning house yet, because how do the optics look like?
That's right.
I wish they would think of these people that are raising and giving good documented proof that they were weaponized, lawfare, this whole thing, the same mentality as somebody that's in a burning house, and them and their family could literally just be destroyed or dead, kind of thing.
Your analogy is spot on, because that's in fact what you're talking about. Chris, what evidence do you think deserves to be taken a second look at? Is there other stuff that you want on appeal to have, we need to look at this again? What is it?
Well, so we were forced into a plea, because at that time we were fighting. I mean, we were dragging this on, and we were fighting, and finally, the prosecutor does what I'm kind of learning now is they're in their playbook, threatening more charges.
Right.
And then they even said they were going to charge my mom, who's 78 now, who's never had any kind of role in our businesses. So, and then obviously my father-in-law and my mother-in-law forked the bill for when we did finally move from court-appointed to a public defender, who I made a mistake on that one too, because he was he looked like a pit bull, but then there's some stuff in the news about him, and it's all tied to Ken Paxton. But because my public, or the one we hired, was Dan Cogdale, and I'm like, oh well, he represented Ken Paxton out of for his impeachment stuff, but now Dan's coming out saying he's favoring the other guy, and he's actually a closet case Democrat. At least that's what I'm hearing. So, and ever since I told him all about the stuff with Trump and our thing, like, it felt like he was calling it in. So, sure. But my father-in-law paid Dan 6 figures to represent us, and he did nothing. Like the other attorney I wish I would have hired out of Beverly Hills in California here, we couldn't afford. It was a little bit more, but he looked at the plea deal. He looked at all the stuff that Dan put together, and he's like, he did nothing. He literally did nothing for you guys. Yeah. Like, this is very shameful. So that's why I'm like, I really wish we would have found Bill Shipley back then. But so we were forced into a plea, and even Dan's like, well, we could take this to trial, but you're in California, you're from California. This is taking place in Hawaii. They're going to just say, make you guys look like horrible mainlanders trying to, steal their land, or, all sorts of things. And we didn't have any more money to fight. So we were backed into that corner. And at that time, Dan and my wife's attorney said, well, if you take the plea, we're going to argue. We can't argue for a lesser sentence because you, in the plea deal, the prosecutor put in there that we can't argue for a lesser sentence.
Okay.
Which they had never seen before. Like, I think that's used for people that have been in and out of the system a dozen times, like for hard, violent stuff.
So Roger Stone, he's been involved in a lot of pardons. He's been involved in a lot of cases where it's weaponization. The weaponization department is, from what I can see, fully dissolved. Ed Martin was over that and pardons, and now Ed is strictly pardons. Ed did some great work with January 6th. He's done some other incredible work. And I know he's, drafted pardons, but talk to me about Roger. How has Roger Stone publicly supported your case? And I'm just curious, how did that relationship begin? I never asked you that question. How did you guys come in contact?
Yeah, I when I was on Roger's show a couple Sundays ago, I finally apologized to him on air on how because I've told this story a couple times. But so when Aaron went in, I got into research mode. Like, I was treating this as a new business, like a startup. Like, how do I get to this finish line of getting my info, our case in front of President Trump? So I started doing research, and I came across Roger, and then I saw that he was on the app Cameo, Cameo app, which a lot of people are. And so I paid the $125 or $150, whatever his thing was at that time. And I didn't ask for a birthday. I didn't ask for an anniversary greeting or anything like that. I basically, and you only have 600 characters to write. So I wrote everything I could about what happened to Aaron and I. Almost a week went by because I think they have a week to do it. And then I got a notification from Cameo saying Roger Stone has canceled your Cameo. But then like a couple minutes after that, they're like, you have a direct message from Roger Stone. So he direct messaged me and he said, I want to know more about your case. I don't want your money. Here's my cell phone number. Let's talk.
Wow.
So
that is patented Roger Stone. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if the timing was just right, God intervention, like all that kind of stuff at that time happened with him. And so that led, and that was probably, I think, around February.
So wait, well, why do you think your case resonated with him, Chris?
Well, I mean, he got his teeth kicked in and dragged through the mud as well. Obviously, he didn't have to go into a facility, and he was very thankful for that because, I mean, what they were probably going to throw at him, he could have died in a facility.
I don't think he would have made it out alive. I feel confident that they would have found a way to make sure he did not.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, and then I was able to finally, Roger, he's, you can talk to him on the phone here and there, but it's mostly through text.
Yep.
So, and then sometimes it's hit or miss. Like last summer I would text him and not hear from him for 2 weeks. And then I'd have to follow up and he's like, sorry, he uses the analogy. He's a man basically drinking out of a fire hydrant hose every day. Like, it's
yes, he is. There hasn't been a trip to DC where I haven't run into Roger. He's up there all the time.
Yeah.
Doing what he does, advocating for a lot of people like yourself. That's part of what he does. Yeah.
And he's a fighter, and
he's a fighter.
It's part of his Italian blood, I think, and that's what I got too. So that's why Erin volunteered to go in first, because she just knows that fight I have, and I got us to this point. So hopefully, when I do go in, she can continue it with the stuff that I've done. But yeah, I mean,
with respect to Aaron going in first, as a husband, I mean, I don't know if that was coming down to me and my husband. I don't know that my husband would have let me go in first. I don't know what that conversation was like. I'm just curious, what was that conversation like? And if it's too personal, you don't have to share it, but that must have been difficult for you to let her go in first. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, she's strong and she's very, she's firstborn. So
she's tough.
She's tough. And I think she just wanted to get it over with.
Yep. That sounds like something I would do.
And it wasn't a long conversation. It was like, I think it was in the courtroom, and the judge basically, like, the attorneys are like, who wants to go in first? And like, Aaron's like, I'll go. Like, but I think she knew just the businesses I had started before her and I met, and then what we've done together, and just the way I think outside the box. I mean, there's stuff I did that I don't think I told you last time, but like buying the billboard by Alison Marie Johnson's house, buying the billboard by Mar-a-Lago, stuff like that, where I kind of went back to an analog, if you want to call it an ad campaign. But
I think it's great.
And that's, and then I know how to edit just from my history of going to American Film Institute. So editing little 30-second spots and running them in DC and in Florida by Mar-a-Lago. That stuff she probably wouldn't have even thought of or could have done, or seeing the price of that stuff to do. Like I'm like, okay, I need to save this amount to do this billboard, and then save this amount to do this, or oh, I might have to push off our rent payment a week to do this. She's more like, okay, we got to do, this is due. We can't spend it on this and that. So I think she knows that's just the way I think, because my goal is I don't mind pushing something off for the greater good of something else, because we'll still get there on both ends. So but yeah, it wasn't a bad conversation. And I mean, like I've said, she went through hell that first. It was a little over 3 weeks at the Fresno County jail. I mean, she was there with gang members' wives and violent like she would just see people get beat up for no reason. The guards wouldn't do anything. So
let's talk about the pardon process, because you have publicly advocated through clemency, through your website, pardonmaisie.com. You've asked President Trump to review your case. Roger has publicly urged the president to consider clemency, and has used his media platform to advocate for you and your wife. Walk us through this right now.
So yeah, when I started the whole pardon process, obviously you look up online and there's people that'll just fill out the form that's on the DOJ for you, like attorneys and stuff. And then obviously there's huge lobbyists that will do stuff too. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm smart enough. I know how to do this stuff on my own. Mm-hmm. So I started building this pardon packet that ended up being about 140 pages long. Mm-hmm. And it has
Chris, we lose you? Oh, we lost Chris. He popped off. Well, he'll pop back in. I'll just give him a minute. I'm actually on his website right now. He's done a beautiful website for his pardon process. And this is his billboard. Oh, here he comes. Just give him a second to pop back in. There you are. There you are. I know you're probably working off Wi-Fi on your phone at this point. You probably don't even have cable set up yet.
No, I got the cable set up and it's fast, but yeah, I don't know what happened there.
That's okay.
So I built this pardon packet, and it had basically chapters in it. And, one chapter was all the lies that the prosecutor said at the sentencing hearing, mm-hmm. and then backed up with documents of why this one thing was a lie and now this thing is a lie, like everything. And then what they did to our house. We had over $1 million in equity in our house when COVID hit. And then at the same time, when they put that Liz pendants on it, so we couldn't access any of that money. 10 days after our sentencing, the prosecutor sent agents out to the foreclosure sale that my best friend was at, who was trying to mm-hmm. buy the house back. Mm-hmm. And agents were there bidding on our property.
Come on.
We talked about that last time. And so there was a whole section with documented proof on that. There was a whole section on how the judge just said he was sentencing us for deterrence. We're not hardened criminals. We've already rehabilitated ourselves, in his sense, because through all this, we lost all our businesses and we started a new one. Yeah. And that new one's doing just as well, if not better than our business during COVID.
Great. I'm thrilled to hear that.
So, and it says, and I had to pay $1,100 for the court transcripts to do this. And I literally highlighted all for each of those sections, all the stuff to prove the lies of the prosecutor, to show what the judge said about the like he was basically sentencing us for deterrence. And one of my other really good friends who his uncle was pretty high up in military defense. I'll just leave it at that. But he's like, so he's deterring other people from applying for a loan program that doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
So yeah. And then obviously there was another section about the money, because the loan was for a little over 1.3 and 1.1 was paid back or had been seized in the beginning. And we had never applied for forgiveness. And this gets back to what the attorneys told us to take the plea, because they were going to argue actual loss over intended loss using the U.S. versus Banks. I think it was a second district. I forget which appeals district, because that would have changed the sentencing tremendously, where it could have lowered the points down to just given the judge the option for probation.
Sure.
So we're like, okay, well, that's why we also agreed to the plea. But then they never argued any of that. So,
wow.
Yeah. But in the court transcripts from even the sentencing hearing and the change of plea hearing, Aaron asked the judge a question about the funds, and he gave an example, because he gave an example of, say someone robs a bank and takes $10,000, but only $2,000 of that was spent. So there's $8,000 that would go towards the restitution, basically.
Right.
They did not do any of that. So we are still on the hook now for, I think it's 1.4 million, because
that's ridiculous.
They've added the fees on top of the original loan.
See, this is the kind of stuff I hear over and over and over again. It doesn't matter the agency. It's the same criminal activity. They're doing it in child protective services. They're doing it in guardianship programs where they're declaring your elders incompetent and they're just looting their estate. You've got law enforcement seizing assets and then buying them like houses. And I'm going to call out a very famous sheriff here in Florida that everybody loves, Sheriff Grady Judd in Polk County. He owns about 10 houses, last time I checked, that are seizures, asset seizures from guardianship, where people were declared incompetent. And that's just one. You have judges that are doing it. They start LLCs. This is a full-scale looting of the American people. And they're lured in by money that they don't even have. They just create these decimal points and they have the Fed print it. And we, the taxpayers, pay for it. But it's like they're getting paid triple the amount. It's unbelievable what they're doing. And we are on a hamster wheel, busting our asses to keep our heads right here every single day, while inflation is out of control. Treasuries are being liquidated all over the globe, coming back home, flooding us with more dollars, which is going to we haven't even hit real inflation yet. This is unacceptable to me. And the fact that you and your wife have been tortured in this fashion is unbelievable. COVID was a manufactured scam. None of this stuff should have ever happened. You should never have had to take any PPP loans. Because I know how Hollywood is. Everybody was terrified and masked up. And I heard horror stories from people on sets. I mean, just unbelievable BS, frankly. And your family has been terrorized by this, along with millions of other families that went through the terror of COVID because they just didn't know, because they trusted the morons in the white suits and the stethoscopes. The whole thing is just disgusting to me. It just gets my blood boiling, because people know me, know how much I hate agency government. It's a fraud. All of it's a fraud. This is fraud. You were defrauded by even dangling a loan in front of you to help you guys make ends meet. And you paid it back for the most part. And it was a forgivable loan. It was a forgivable loan.
We followed the guidelines to use projections. I think that's the big issue, is when and that's also in the pardon packet, I showed there's an email from one of the loan originators saying, because I asked, before applying for anything, I'm like, hey, we don't have historical, but we have projections for this TV program. This TV program is not new. We've been working on it for over a year. We've poured thousands and thousands of Aaron and my own money into it. We had deals on the table with a production company called Buffalo 8 to fund it. And then it all just fell apart when COVID hit. So I said, we have projections. And they said, yes, you can use projections. And if anyone knows traditional SBA lending, projections is what they base their loans off, not just payroll projections, but they want to just know that this business is, the people that are trying to start this business have a viable plan in place.
Sure.
Of your projected rent, what you think your projected income will be, all that stuff for 24 months. So when
Right.
the loan originator said, hey, you can use projections on payroll, I'm like, well, okay, like no red flag. And we kept trying to bring this to the prosecutor, and he did not want to hear it. He did not want to try and go after a big fish because he had already caught his, got his scalp off of us and was just taking his win and moving on to the next victim. So,
Yeah.
and and there's stuff in that pardon packet too about the prosecutor, another case in Hawaii, because this took place out of Hawaii, even though we live in California.
Can I ask you what phase of this pardon process are you currently in, and have you had any communication with the Office of Pardon Attorney Ed Martin specifically?
Yeah, I've met with Ed and seen him a couple times when I've been out to DC, and
Great man.
obviously we don't know for sure who's on some kind of list. We've given them a lot of information, and we're hoping and praying. And, I feel like Ed is trying to get more people pardoned.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I that's above my pay grade to know exactly where we are. I've given them, I mean, obviously Alice, we got all the stuff to Alice. I know Roger has talked to Alice, I think last summer. It's like she called him, that's what he said. And so I know we've given everything we can. I even, just my due diligence after sending Alice the pardon packet that she asked me to send it to her. I also sent a hard copy to the White House to David Warrington and said, this also went to Alice. So did the same thing to Ed Martin, so they could see everything in there. So, I think we've pushed as much as we can on that end. So now it's more just the advocating, being on shows like you, Roger. Aaron and I are both going to be on Diamond Silk again.
Good.
And then
love her.
I'll probably be on RSBN, I think, too, right before I go in, if it is the 20th. But I feel like if you want to take Alice Marie Johnson as a test case,
right?
She applied for a pardon 2 or 3 times during Obama era and was denied. But then on the one that worked, obviously President Trump was in office, so we had someone with some common sense.
Right.
But Kim Kardashian got a hold of her case. So you had that bigger
star
name.
power. Yeah.
And so that's why, I reached out to Dean Cain because we have a mutual friend, and he's been posting a couple things here and there and did a couple videos for me and stuff like that. So I feel like in our process, that's, just taking Alice's case as like an example. That's the next step, is just to try and show. And I sent everything to Dean. I emailed everything to him, our pardon packet as well. So I want people to see it. I don't want them just to be like, hey, can you tell, advocate for us, but I'm not going to tell you anything about our case.
Right. Of course. No, you're giving them everything they need because people will have questions, and frankly, you want them to feel confident when they're speaking on your behalf.
Exactly. And I want them to see the documented proof about it, so they feel comfortable.
I want to drill on the documented proof aspect of it because, going back to the PPP loan, did you believe that when you were applying for the Paycheck Protection Loan, right, the Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, a forgivable loan, did you actually believe you were participating in a government program that was designed to save jobs? And if you look back now, did you think the PPP was actually a good idea?
I mean, at that time, it did feel rushed, and obviously the guidelines were changing every second as well. I mean,
were you being updated by push notifications, or how were you?
No, but I mean, just the stuff
that the guidelines were changing all the time.
You would just see it on the news. Like, I think the forgiveness amount changed from this dollar amount to this dollar amount, and then the time to pay it back changed from this, and like the amount you could use on just payroll changed from this. Like, it obviously felt rushed.
Right.
And I think that's why a lot of even the local banks here, when I first reached out to them, they're like, we're not even doing, because they're small community banks. Like, we're not even doing it right
Yeah,
now.
they
We don't
didn't
even,
have the bandwidth, I'm sure.
well, and they're like, we don't even like, we don't have clear guidance on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, at that time, it did feel like it was a savior. I mean, but at that time before, if I would have never heard about the PPP loan, I was just going to pull some cash out of our house because we had equity and just use that to survive at the time. So this was no intent to defraud, like some of those stories that you would hear on the news, like the guys that were working in fast food restaurants and then bought Lambos. Like,
Right.
like
If you could redesign that program, what would you change?
oh God, I don't even know. I mean, obviously they need to have people that were working at the banks or these loan originators. They needed to have them have better information, because at the end of the day, what the loan originator told us about being able to use projections was incorrect, because it wasn't in those guidelines at the time.
So do you think that Congress underestimated how difficult it would be to administrate this program fairly?
I think they did that. And then obviously with anything in the world, there's going to be scammers.
Sure.
I mean,
Unfortunately.
we deal with that in our business day in and day out. Like, so, I mean, Aaron and I have always been on the other side. I mean, we had an employee a long time ago working for us that was stealing, and we went to the DA, and that kid went to prison for, I think, a couple weeks and had to pay restitution to us. So to be on this other side, it's like, wait, what's happening? Like, we've always been on the side of standing up for what's right. And then to be on this side was, it felt like we were in some bizarro world.
So in my open, I had said the SBA Inspector General later referenced the PPP, a pay and chase system. Do you think that that description is accurate?
I don't, what do you mean by pay? And
Meaning they paid these out. It was sort of like, remember in the 08 banking crisis, the liar's loans. Oh, I have enough money to pay the mortgage. I'm buying 16 houses, you know, give me, and then of course they had to go and repossess the houses after the fact. So this was pay the loans based on whatever these people filled out. And then if they were fraud or whatever, we'll chase the money later.
Yeah. Cause I mean, I don't remember anything when they were introducing the loan and stuff like that saying, I mean, I'm sure there was something in the small print, but even when you go get a car loan, it says like, is everything you've written truthful? Mm-hmm. But I don't remember in the beginning when PPP came out, they were saying, hey, if you're filling these out right now, we're going to come and prosecute you. Because I actually heard the opposite. And I tell this too, and it was probably my biggest mistake at the time. I was just turning on the Today Show in the mornings to watch what was happening with COVID. Mm-hmm. And I remember and they've scrubbed their site. But I remember one of the reporters, and I forget her name, she's like, you know, you guys, you need to apply, because these loans are going to run dry. If there's errors in your application, they're not going to throw you in jail.
Right.
And that line has stuck with me because I'm like, well, that's exactly what they did to us. So, yeah. And then it was kind of like maybe a month after the loans came out, that's when you started hearing like, we're going to start going after these people. Like, it was almost like entrapment.
That show me the man, I'll show you the crime. So and this is typical for the government. So if somebody asked you from the government, Chris, would you be willing to assist federal officials in identifying the prosecutorial abuse and helping reform the system? Because you are a victim of this.
Oh yeah. I don't know if our family's getting drugged through this, because I mean, we've always had that. Even other businesses that have gone down and up, we've always come out ahead. And I don't know if that's God's plan for us. Like, you know, I forget that my wife knows Bible verses.
It doesn't kill you, makes you stronger.
And stuff like that. So I don't know if we're getting dragged through that. And then just the work that I've done and the people I've met in DC, if that's going to lead to something down the road where I can help. I mean, I would love to help. I would love to get through this with us and then start helping other people, because I'm sure you've heard some of these other stories, like the well, obviously we know Dr. Ron's story, but like
Mhm.
even there's a grandma who's raising 5 grandkids, and her daughter's in prison for 20 years for a healthcare fraud thing. I mean, that's I don't know the details about that case, but just from what I read, that's an
It's an obscene. Yeah.
obscene sentence to begin with.
Yeah, it is. I
And then we
agree.
don't know what lawfare. I mean, and there are dozens and dozens of cases like that.
Chris,
That
if you could
I
speak to directly to President Trump, what would you want to say?
I know you don't have an easy job. And out of any president, you've definitely been able to roll with the punches, with everybody attacking you. Because I mean, you could basically save a bunch of kittens from a burning house, and the left side media would still somehow criticize you because you tossed one down to someone else instead of carrying all of them down. I mean, I get it. I have common sense, and I can see the pressure you're under, and I know the people you've helped, and I talked to quite a few of the ones that have gotten pardons from you. You know, there's a lot more people out there. I hate that you have to, you're a businessman, you just like me, so I don't know if dealing with politics and then what you were raised in being a businessman obviously is a push and shove, and
Mhm.
I don't know what conversations go on behind closed doors. I'm assuming since you did hire Alice Marie Johnson and you got Ed Martin as a pardon attorney, you're looking at the bigger picture there and want to help people. I there's rumors going around. I mean, there was rumors before about the 250 for 4th of July, things like that, and now rumors like we just need to get through midterms. And if that's the case, and I know what happened in your first term. Like, I mean, Trump, they lost midterms halfway through, and then it was just impeach, impeach, impeach against him. So I get the bigger picture. And I
Yeah.
know you like to argue against that because obviously you're an advocate and you're very vocal and in a good way. Um,
Oh, I
so
get the big picture, I do, but sometimes, when you get briefed by people like Roger on certain things, and I just think that it's sort of a no-brainer. I know it was easy to, not easy. There was a lot of work that went behind the J6 pardons. I was involved in a lot of them, getting information to the pardon attorney and working with other people to make sure the facts were accurate. But I just think he knows better than anybody the weaponization of government. And I think we need to stand on that example and just smash it down. Smash
yeah,
it down. Look, they took his $1.5 billion he wanted to give to the J6ers or anybody that's been weaponized, had the government weaponized against him, to have him do a class action and get a piece of it. He was donating that away.
no, I
And
get. I mean,
they stopped that. I mean, this is insane. Insane.
I think President Trump is trying. I think there's obviously people trying to push him to just delay things,
Hmm.
and I can see it both ways. Even though I mean, I don't want to go in. I would love to, like I said, have a pardon on Thursday or Friday of this week, not just for me, but I mean
For your family,
my
for
family,
people.
especially my boys. I mean, our oldest had to go into therapy when Aaron left, and he was the happiest go lucky kid ever, and then was starting to have panic attacks. I have to pick him up from school, things like that. Um, I
Terrible.
don't want them to have to go through another round of this because that
Yes.
collateral damage is double when you have a staggered sentence. So yeah,
Yep.
I would love to have a pardon sooner than later, but for President Trump, I'm willing to go to war, like Martha Burns said, and go in and hope that something happens towards the end of the year.
So you just got your designation paperwork yesterday to a Bureau of Prison camp in Sheridan, Oregon, almost 900 miles from where you live. And you said, I'm reading right out of your email, adding more insult to injury where they are to keep you, because they're supposed to keep you 500 miles from your house within that radius. So, and there's a Bureau of Prisons camp. You said 56 miles from where you live, yet they're sending you 900 miles away, which means your family can't come to visit you easily, if at all.
Well, yeah, logistically, it just seems idiotic. But then
Everything they do
also
is.
the day I'm supposed to report, I think it's a day or two before is when our kids start school.
Yeah, it's insane.
So we're still thinking on logistics on how I'm going to get up there, because normally, like, I drove Erin. If I was going to Lompoc, which is the 56 miles away,
Yeah,
I would be able to take the kids to school and then she'd drop me off there. But
right.
now this is turning into a 2-day trip where if Erin has to take me up there, we're gonna have to drive, and then our oldest is starting high school. He's already nervous. He's the one
Yeah.
that has the panic issues. And obviously my parents can't take me because they can't even drive anymore. So I mean, logistically, it's beyond cruel.
So this is a tough question to answer on the heels of what you just said. What gives you hope today?
And some days I have no hope, as of anybody. And
Mhm.
then I kind of have to mentally regroup and just keep fighting. I mean, Ed Martin made a comment about the J6ers. Some days you're moving an inch. It's just an inch. And then some days it's an inch backwards. And it's just, you kind of keep moving an inch. There's not just one big spectacular thing that happens until you get to that finish line. So my hope is through some of the contacts for a worst case scenario, the contacts that we do have now at the BOP that are higher up. I mean, even Bill Marshall and Rick Stover, and I've emailed with Josh Smith as well, because I met him at the Capitol. And then some of these other advocator guys that deal with the BOP all the time, trying to just get, if a pardon doesn't come through, obviously before I have to leave, or even at the end of the year, and somehow it hopefully comes someday, but even if it's not till the end of Trump's term, we're now trying to mitigate how long I'm gone to make sure some of these facilities are doing their job correctly. Because the First Steps Act, what Trump introduced it in 2018, is kind of law. So that's easy to fix, and the case managers at these facilities have to follow that. The issue that a lot of people are having, and this, Erin spent 14 months away. She should have only been at that camp for maybe 6, because they did not, the Second Chance Act is the one that they give you time credits to go out of the camp onto home confinement or in the halfway house. And normally some of these places, like, just use Martha Burns' husband as an example, he got an 18-month sentence. He was in a facility for 3, but then he actually got 6 months of halfway house. Erin got 1 month of halfway house. So, and it's some of these case managers, even if it comes directly from Bill Marshall saying, relook at the Second Chance Act to give, because they can give up to a year for halfway house.
Yeah.
So some of these case managers aren't following the stuff for the Second Chance Act out of spite. So people are staying longer. Like I know a guy that's in Lompoc right now. He should be going to a halfway house yesterday, and his halfway house date is next April.
Oh my God.
That's also kind of what scares me about going to Lompoc, is because I might be there longer, where I got to find out more info from my contacts on how the case manager is in Sheridan. And if they're moving people along, I might have to just take the bullet and go up there. And hopefully, if everything were to go how it should, it would be 8 or 9 months in there, and then another 8 or 9 months at a halfway house, where that sounds miserable, but at least in a halfway house, I can go take a couple classes at a college or a JC to get out. You have your cell phone back. I mean, Erin, when she was at the halfway house in Riverside, we actually were allowed to take her to Disneyland one weekend because it was close. So, I mean, and then if your halfway house is close enough, you can go home on the weekends. So it's still not ideal, but it's obviously better than being in a camp. So that's what we're trying to focus on is still pushing this. That's why I'm doing interviews like this, for the bigger picture that would just resolve this whole mess.
So in wrapping this up, and believe me, as I said to my friends last night, they become friends because it's just unbelievable how good these people are, and to be framed the way they are, it's disgusting. And in your situation, it's the same thing for you and your wife. You know, you were the people that the system decided to target because they wanted some scalps. I call them scalp hunters. But I want to leave you with this, because if this interview is the last one that you actually do before you surrender, what message do you want your children to hear from their father that resonates years from now?
That's a good one. Well, first, my kid, luckily, Aaron and I have always owned our own business. So I've always been that drop-off pickup, because my dad was never there. My stepdad, the one with Parkinson, was there, but my dad was never that kind of father. So they've seen Aaron and I fight, even just for our businesses to grow, and if we have a down slump, to grow back up again. They've seen that fight, and then I mean, they saw what I was doing last year. Before I did the billboard, I was putting up. I have pictures. There was at least at one time on the kitchen counter over 100 USPS priority mailers that were going to Alice Marie, going to the White House, going to anybody and everybody. And I was the type that I didn't send one at a time. I sent 30 to make a statement. They saw me printing those out. They saw me doing that late at night. So I'm really hoping on the other end of this, they see, like, if you continue to fight and don't give up, like Roger said, which Nixon said, fight, fight, fight. It's not over until you give up, not when you're defeated. I want, hopefully they have that takeaway, that if you continue to fight and show the truth, you will prevail. The other night we were sitting at the dinner table before we started our move, and that's when Aaron told them, because we hadn't told them the date yet. They obviously knew it was coming, and that we said the 20th. And our youngest, he's turning a little smart aleck. But he's like, well, I love cooking. Cooking's my stress release. It's, I think, part of my Italian heritage too. He's like, well, who's going to cook and drive for us? Because I always drive. It's an Italian thing, I think, too. Because
kids are so funny. They're so funny.
So, I just want them to know, like, we're still fighting to get this done, so we can kind of get back to the life that we had 6 years ago now.
Jesus.
Yeah. It's
hard to believe it's been 6 years, and I feel like I feel like every year is dog years. I feel like we packed 40 some years of crap in the last 6 years, and we're still going. It's like when you're going through hell, don't stop, don't go back, keep going. And I just feel like we just got to all keep going, because we're all going through some aspect of this hell, but it just never seems ending. It's just unending.
Well, yeah, and all the stuff with Fauci just brought up, because I'm like, if he would have never existed, COVID would have never have happened. You play that game in your head, and we'd have never been in this position.
That's right.
It's just like
all manufactured. I would love to
speak before Congress about all this stuff, because
good. I hope you get that chance. I really hope you get that chance. I think there's a lot of people who want to take that opportunity if given the chance. They'll run to the podium.
I'd love to sit down with Trump for 5 minutes. I could probably turn this into a 5-minute elevator pitch.
Well, let's hope that billboard did the trick and got his attention. And I think that was a bold move to do that. Where was the location of this particular one?
So it was actually a brand new one that came up, because the original one I had picked, they said you couldn't do political stuff on. But it was brand new, and I don't know what's the main thoroughbred literally from Trump Airport to Mar-a-Lago. That
Southern Boulevard.
No, it's a freeway.
Oh, 95.
Yeah, it was literally on 95
Yeah.
right there. And I think the lady out front felt bad because I don't remember. I think she gave it to me for like half.
Well, they've got the airport named after him now, so
Yeah.
I don't think it was too much of a pushback there.
And
Chris,
that billboard went up right before Thanksgiving last year. And then I ran commercials
yeah,
targeted in the zip code of Mar-a-Lago at the same time.
incredible. Chris Maisie, God bless you. God bless your wife, Erin, your two boys. I know this is a very difficult time for you and others in this predicament right now. But what you said, your last, the message you want resonating with your kids is to fight, fight, fight. And I think that's the right message. That takes us right back. That's biblical. It takes us back to our founding fathers. And, they put their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor on the line, which is exactly what you've done, you and your wife. And you're not backing down. You're standing up for what is right, and the injustice in the typical government bureaucracy of they basically honey trap and lure and show me the man, we'll find the crime. And that's what I see happening here. And I see happening all too often across, when there's no victim here. It's hard for the government to claim they're a victim. That's the stupid part.
Well, yeah, and I just kind of, I knew this a while back ago. So our family lineage dates back pretty good. And there's it's Philip Mazzei, or Filippo Mazzei was one of Thomas Jefferson's best friends. And there's a couple books about him. And he behind the scenes helped Jefferson write the Declaration of Independence. And the line about all men created equal came from an article that Philip Mazzei wrote.
Perfect.
Back then. So the fight has been in our name for quite a while.
That's amazing. I'm the great granddaughter of Sam Ollis, who fought in the Revolutionary War. He was from Western North Carolina. So it's in my blood. My parents were the same. Whatever. I come by it honestly, and you either do or you don't. I don't judge people who don't. It's their choice. But we have a beautiful country that we're watching get destroyed right before our eyes. And they're doing it by destroying families. This is why my fight for CPS, to reform Child Protective Services is so incredibly, I'm not giving up on that. I've got another call here in a little bit with my team on it, because you can't make America great if you're destroying families. Families have to be strong, and they have to be able to stand on their own, and they shouldn't be under assault every time you turn around. And that's what I see happening in this country. The families are under assault. Chris Maisie, thank you so much for stopping by. Give my best to your wife, Erin. God bless you. And make sure you put a forwarding address. If in fact this doesn't come through and you have to report, let us know how we can reach you. And I'm sure we can keep you busy reading a lot of mail and having to respond to a lot of people.
Yeah. And Erin will be controlling myself. I've told like Roger and Caputo and people like that, like she'll have my phone. So she'll hopefully still be kind of checking in and reaching out, and anything she can do too.
Well, absolutely. Put me on speed dial.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. God bless you.
Bye.
I mean, these stories, it's just awful. This is ridiculous. And whether you believe Chris Maisie should have been prosecuted, that's not the question that you should be asking. That's not the bigger question. The bigger question is whether justice in America is even applied consistently, because I don't see it happening at all. This PPP program, it distributed about $800 billion in emergency relief. Congress intended most of that money to be forgiven if businesses met the statutory requirements. And these government watchdogs, they've acknowledged that millions of loans contain fraud indicators, that the billions of dollars in forgiven loans were later flagged as potentially ineligible. Yet only a tiny fraction of the borrowers ever actually face criminal prosecution. That doesn't mean fraud should go unpunished. It means Americans deserve to understand how those decisions were made. Who's investigated? Who gets prosecuted? Who quietly pays civil settlements? Who receives forgiveness without scrutiny? This is the kind of stuff that, we should be asking. And were there even similarly situated borrowers treated differently? I would say yes. These questions are larger than any one case. And sadly, our government is larger than any of us at this point. But we, the people, are the government, and we have to start acting like that, because whether Chris Maisie ultimately prevails in his, pardon process, his story forces us basically to take a really hard look at how these emergency powers were exercised, how prosecutorial discretion is applied, and whether equal justice under the law remains more than ideal. I'm going to continue to follow this case, and others like it. You've heard me report on them. I'm going to do a video today for the SEC folks because I've gotten some new information, and I think we need to get it out there, and I hope you'll help share it. It'll only be about a minute and a half, but it's going to be powerful to have all the receipts in there like I do, because we have to follow cases like this because transparency and accountability should never end when, people like Chris Mazie go off to prison and all of a sudden they're not in the headlines anymore. That's just not how we have to roll. We have to stick together. I'm Ann Vandersteel. I thank you so much for joining me today. This has been Steel News. And again, we'll see you next time. God bless you. God bless your families. And God bless America.